I never dreamed that a simple Tuesday night, wrapped in the hush of our little ranch house on the edge of Willow Creek, would upend the fragile world I'd pieced together after loss. It crept in like fog off the river, soft and unassuming, until it swallowed everything I thought I understood about family, about myself. Where are you tuning in from this evening? Drop it in the replies and get comfortable. This tale lingers like a secret you can't quite shake. Let me start by admitting something I've kept locked away for years. Sharing this feels like cracking open a window in a room that's been sealed too long. Air rushes in, fresh but startling. It's not shame that held my tongue. It's the tangle of feelings that still twist when I revisit them, sharp as thorns on a climbing rose. But distance has a way of softening edges, turning chaos into clarity. What unfolded that night reshaped me, a pivot point that echoed long after the lights dimmed. My son Michael has always carried a quiet depth, the sort that draws you in without fanfare. My husband David was the anchor, the one whose laughter bounced off the walls of our sunlit kitchen, whose steady hands fixed what broke and held what trembled. When he left us, snatched away by a heart that gave out mid-sentence during a routine checkup, the house fell into an unnatural hush. That was 4 years back, and for ages I drifted through routines like a ghost in my own life, smiling at neighbors, stirring soup on autopilot, all while the emptiness gnawed from within. Michael drifted home a few months after the memorial, his duffel slung over one shoulder, eyes shadowed but kind. "Just till things steady out, Elena," he murmured, using my first name like he had since he hit his 20s, a small bridge between us, mother and son blurring into equals. We both knew it was more than that. He was pushing 35, freshly untethered from a relationship that fizzled like a spent match. And in his thoughtful silences, I caught glimpses of David in his prime. That same crinkle at the corners of his eyes when he pondered a puzzle, before the world etched worry into his features. That evening unfolded like so many before it, ordinary as breath. I'd just tucked away the last of the ironed linens when Michael slipped through the back door, fresh from his ritual stroll along the winding paths by the creek. Rain had kissed his dark curls into loose waves, and his wool coat glistened under the pendant light. He looked worn from the day, but his grin when he spotted me stirred a flicker in my ribs, a warmth I'd almost forgotten. "Whatever's simmering smells like heaven," he said, nodding toward the stove where I'd reheated a shepherd's pie from the weekend batch. I chuckled, waving it off. "Just scraps dressed up fancy. You're free to imagine it's gourmet." He shrugged out of his coat with a low laugh. "After the circus at the office today, I'll cling to any illusion going." We ate at the scarred oak table, forks scraping plates in companionable quiet. The good kind, layered with unspoken ease. He vented about a stubborn project at his drafting firm, blueprints gone awry, and I offered nods, a timely quip here and there to coax out his smile. It felt effortless, this dance we'd honed in the wake of absence. Not the roles we'd once played, but two souls who'd weathered the same gale, finding footing side by side, with plates cleared and the sink gleaming. I uncorked a bottle of Merlot, just a single pour each, our gentle pact against the pull of forgetfulness. Michael had watched me teeter close to that edge after David, his vigilance a quiet vow. We migrated to the den, that cozy nook with its sagging bookshelves and the faded Persian rug David's aunt had gifted us decades ago. A fleece throw draped over our laps, the murmur of a forgotten documentary droning from the screen like white noise. Without forethought, I tipped my head onto his shoulder, a habit reborn from bleaker days. I'd done it before, seeking solace in his nearness. But tonight, he adjusted with intention, his arm curving around me like a bracket. Familiar, yes, but the press of his palm against my sleeve, the idle stroke of his thumb along the knit, hummed with something novel, a subtle current that prickled my skin. I swallowed, unmoored. "Everything all right?" He breathed, voice a thread in the dim. I murmured agreement, then faltered. "Fine, I suppose. Bone-tired, mostly." He angled his face, his jaw grazing my temple, his exhale warm against my ear. "You don't have to armor up every second, you know that, right?" Simple words, but they lodged deep, cracking the facade I'd worn like chainmail. My chest tightened. Not grief's old vice, but the jolt of visibility, of being beheld not as the hollowed survivor or the eternal caregiver, but as Elena, flesh and flaws. I exhaled shakily. "I ache for touch sometimes," I confessed, the admission slipping free before I could cage it. Real connection, the kind that fills the quiet. He didn't recoil. If anything, his hold firmed, his free hand alighting on mine in my lap, fingers tentative as if testing fragile ice. I get it, he said, plain and profound. That void. It's echoed in me, too. Silence bloomed, thick with the night's ink beyond the panes, still inviting the truths we sidestepped by daylight. When I lifted my gaze, his met mine, holding no judgment, no unease, but a tenderness that tugged at buried strings, echoing David's gaze in our unguarded hours. Affection laced with empathy. A wordless vow. Our fingers laced, deliberate, yet giving me every out. I didn't take it. Instead, I nestled closer, ear to his chest, tuning to the reliable thrum beneath. Sorry, I whispered, the apology rootless, perhaps for the chasm of years, or this fragile bridge we teetered on. Don't, he replied, voice a rumble. Needing this? It's human. It's us. And wasn't that the crux? Solace, yes, recognition, absolutely. Two hearts, starved for light, mirroring fractures in the other's reflection. His knuckles grazed my temple, sweeping back a flyaway lock, and my pulse stuttered. No retreat from either side, just a mutual yielding to the pull, unhurried, profound, as if exhuming a relic long interred. Sleep eluded me that night, not from turmoil, but from the echo of rightness, the balm of being truly witnessed after eons in shadow. Dawn crept in rosy through the gauzy curtains of my room, gentling the edges of furniture I'd rearranged a dozen times to outrun memories. Downstairs, the clatter of cabinets and the gurgle of the percolator painted Michael's Sunday ritual, up with the birds. Brewing David's old blend, bold, black. No fuss, to coax the house awake without clamor. It coaxed a genuine curve to my lips, unbidden. Yet under that ease swirled a subtle churn, last night's residue vivid as a half-woven tapestry, threads of warmth and wonder pulling taut. I rose, belting my flannel robe against the chill, less for propriety than muscle memory, and patted down the creaky stairs. A flutter stirred low. Had I imagined the shift? Was it mere vintage and vulnerability, a winter's whim? He stood at the range, profile to me, spatula in hand as butter sizzled with onions for omelets. The aroma wrapped the air like a hug. Morning, I ventured, soft as the light slanting through the blinds. He pivoted, face brightening in that boyish way that belied his years, but his eyes held a new steadiness, unclouded by dawn's haze. Hey, Elena, rest well? I claimed the steaming mug he'd set out, ceramic etched with wildflowers from a long-ago fair, its heat seeping into my palms. Deeper than I've managed in ages, truth be told. His smile deepened and we let quiet reign, companionable yet charged, last night's undercurrent threading the seams. Post-meal, we wandered to the side yard, where bare maples clawed at the overcast sky. Winter's grip left little to fuss over, dormant beds, frost-kissed pots. But these outings were our reset, mugs in hand, breathing the crisp bite of pending snow. I lingered by the wrought iron bench, eyes on a squirrel scavenging acorns near the fence. Michael approached from behind, draping my scarf over my shoulders. Wind's got teeth today, he noted, and as I turned, our knuckles brushed. A spark, that same deliberate warmth from the eve. Our stares locked, unflinching. Last night, I began, voice threading thin, then stalling. No need to unpack it, he interjected, tone velvet over steel. We were just real, with each other. The admission hovered, settling like dew. He was spot on. No lines crossed, yet the intimacy, the dwell of his touch, my unwillingness to sever, transcended mere balm. It delved deeper, a vein of longing that both thrilled and daunted in its authenticity. I studied my laced fingers. It's been ages since I felt tethered like that. To anyone. He stepped parallel, horizon claiming his gaze, the skeletal oaks beyond our hedge. No apologies needed for that. I felt the tether too, the hollows, the heavy dusks when everything presses in. I dipped my head. Grief's a sly companion, isn't it? Lurking like fog, you navigate blind till it lifts. No quick retort. Instead, his hand claimed mine, light as a promise, and instinct curled my digits around his. That evening, the pattern wove anew, chamomile steaming on the side table, chuckles over a dog-eared photo album's tales of Michael's gap-toothed youth. Then the throw cocooning us on the sectional. My temple finding harbor at his collarbone as if magnetized. His respiration feathered my crown, rhythmic, grounding. beneath his pulse a metronome to my own. Not the fire of novels, no. This was quieter alchemy, loneliness dissolving in mutual gaze, an awakening. Does the place ever whisper back? I mused, scarce above the page turn of wind outside. Like David still humming in the hall? Michael drew me nearer. Every day. Echoes of his stories, his off-key whistling. Maybe it's not ghosts, just us holding the space. We lingered, tea forgotten as frost etched the panes, lunar glow silvering the yard. At length I tilted up. Us leaning in like this, craving the nearness. Odd, isn't it? His brow quirked. This honesty? Nah, it's vital. Undeniable truth that the admission's bite lay in its verity. Not supplanting voids, not mimicry. Simply two survivors entwined by scars, beheld in fullness beyond titles. Rising, I glanced back from the threshold. His regard followed profound, a beacon in the gloam. Elena, he breathed. I halted, pulse aflutter. Right here. Good, and staying put. Affirmation bloomed as I flicked the switch, shadows claiming the room. The week unfurled in subtle cadences, akin to ink bleeding across vellum, unhurried, indelible. No thunderclap epiphany. Rather, the prolonged farewell at doorways, the waited pauses over breakfast, the hush between us humming alive. A portal had yawned, irrevocable. Wednesday brought drizzle, a relentless patter veiling the world in watercolor grays. I busied in the study, polishing brass lamps and shelving tomes, a diversion from reveries summoned by the rhythm on the roof. David's desk lingered by the bay window. A sentinel of polished walnut, its drawer still harboring his fountain pen, nib stained from unfinished letters. I traced the grain, evoking the squeak of his chair as he'd swivel to appraise my sketches. Me, the amateur watercolorist, him the encourager. Michael entered with cider mugs steaming, halting at my reverie. I'd sprawl at his feet while he sketched plans, he recalled, voice laced with mist. Hand on my shoulder, dubbing me his dream builder. Surprise flickered. He'd held that nugget close. His stare drifted, softened by sepia tones. Haven't voiced his name in seasons, I breathed. He passed the mug, steam curling like incense. Easier to sideline it, yeah? Like utterance summons the sting anew. Warmth bloomed down my throat. Guilt ever creep in? For inching onward? He closed the gap, aura enveloping without contact. Not these days. Progress isn't erasure, it's honoring by breathing. He'd cheer that, for us both. Dusk found us in the alcove off the garage, that musty haven where David's toolbox gathered dust, metallic tang mingling with aged newsprint. I burrowed into the armchair, quilt cinched tight, Michael adjacent, proximate enough for heat to mingle, respectful of bounds. Flames danced in the portable hearth, rain resuming its tattoo. Discourse ignited unbidden, perhaps his pinky hooking mine beneath fabric, or my sigh nestling into his side, unfurling into raw exchange, affections past, solitudes endured, the starless vigils questioning if vulnerability could find harbor again. A hush descended replete. He pivoted, frame angling to mine. I rose to match, periphery dissolving. Only us suspended. His palm cupped my jaw, thumb tracing jawline's curve. I yielded, instinct over intellect. Your words from before, he husked, about craving nearness. They've haunted me. Affirmation trembled on my lips, air held. I won't let isolation claim you. Not solo. No coercion, pure candor. Nor I echoed, frail as mothwing. Who initiated? Irrelevant. The gravity between tugged inexorably. Brows met, breath sinking in suspended grace. This, whatever form it takes, I faltered, timbre quivering. It's uncharted. Me too, he conceded. But it rings true. Secure. And so it did. The anomaly lay in its seamlessness, not transgression, but tide's inexorable draw. I held still as his lips ghosted my brow, a benediction. As digits re-entwined, languid. As mouth alighted on my crown, inhalation shared. Depth unfurled, ancient as root systems. Not carnal haze, but bedrock bond, forged in collective tempests none else could fathom. We abode thus, entwined in synchrony, chronos irrelevant. Parting for stares, he yielded without plea, gaze anchor steady. Sleep well, Elena. Threshold bound, I echoed. You too, Michael. Hallway shadows stretched, but epiphany rooted. No proxies here, no echoes chased. We'd braved identical maelstroms, and now, hands extended in tandem, not mere prop. Dawn gifted a scrawled card by the brewer. Trail by the mill today? Solitude just us? Delight curved my mouth. We traced the overgrown loop past the old water wheel, a relic from town's founding, threading meadows to the pond's glassy lip, a sanctuary untouched since David's picnic epochs, when Michael, gangly teen, hurled pebbles more than words, now evolved. Midday haze latticed through canopy, stippling earth in mosaic. Initial steps wordless, air gravid with anticipation's hush, as if oaks conspired our peace. Lakeside, Michael unfurled the frayed tartan we'd salvaged from attic depths, emulating paternal flourish. I folded legs beneath, thermos cradled, vapors of hazelnut mingling with loam and latent thunder. Ripples lapped, dragonflies skimming, his scrutiny lingered, cataloging. You seem unburdened. Breeze-tossed tress tucked, I beamed. I am, inclination. Haven't worn that serenity in ages. Pause waited. Nor felt it. He spanned the gap, clasp assured. Reciprocity instant, palms dovetailing seamless. I've exhaled pretense for years. I unveiled, hushed, feigning wholeness, burying the hunger. Knuckle grazed dorsal ridge. Shed it here. Always. Lakeside vigil dissolved barriers, not finale to sorrow, David's imprint eternal, but genesis anew, grounded in candor, love's form defying convention's blueprint. He pivoted, timbre hushed. I questioned if soul-deep kinship awaited me again, bearing all unscarred, eyes locked. Doubts linger? Negation slow. Vanished. Inclination unfolded, measured, consent woven in every inch yielded. Midway met, seal soft, protracted, evoking chest's pang and respiration's pause. Parting brought no recrimination, no fog, just embrace, absolute. Twilight homecoming thrummed with unseen filament, his graze at my hip fetching plates, my linger passing utensils, effortless, innate. Evenings wove routine anew, sectional sanctuary, head pillowed to sternum, palm to cadence, encirclement innate as dawn, articulation superfluous. Quiet conveyed volumes. Celine ascended, gilding thresholds. Timepieces cadence, once foe, now ally. Drowse ward, I breathed to interstice. World's verdict on this? Inhalation. Perhaps baffling, but theirs to puzzle, not ours to court. Affirmation lids descending. Indeed, ensuing sunrises eschewed haste. No monikers affixed, no borders sketched. Existence sufficed. Dawn brews savored, rambles extended, suppers collaborative, mirth unbound. Each glance at Michael unveiled not the child I'd nurtured, but the companion who'd paralleled my mending, electing abode over egress. No mantle usurped. A niche carved afresh, tempered by forbearance. Reverence, affinity birthed from nadir's forge, opting tenderness amid ruins. Tomorrow's veil thins unknown. Societal gaze might recoil, whispers weave webs. Yet this endures, vitality reborn, pulse vivified after desolation's grip. And that? Irreplaceable. Weeks blurred into a tapestry of tentative wonders, each thread a quiet defiance of the solitude we'd both worn like ill-fitting cloaks. Mornings began with the scent of cardamom toast wafting from the kitchen, Michael's innovation on David's plain rye, a nod to tradition, laced with his own flair. We'd linger over the mugs, steam curling like unspoken promises, trading fragments of dreams from the night. His often architectural fever dreams of bridges spanning impossible chasms. Mine, watercolor visions of rivers bending toward unseen seas. No grand declarations, just the ease of sharing fragments once hoarded. One crisp autumn afternoon, we ventured to the covered bridge over Willow Creek, that weathered span of crimson slats where David had proposed under a harvest moon. Leaves skittered like confetti as we crossed, hand in hand, the water below chuckling over stones polished smooth by time. Remember how he'd chase you through here, pretending to be the troll? Michael teased, his laugh a low cascade. I squeezed his fingers, memory blooming vivid. And you'd hide in the rafters, giggling till he feigned defeat. Our little warrior. His thumb traced my knuckle, a silent toast to those echoes. We paused midway, leaning on the rail, watching trout dart silver in the shallows. Feels like we're bridging our own gaps now, he said, eyes on the flow. I nodded, throat full. One plank at a time, evenings deep in the weave. We'd pore over David's old journals in the lamplight, his meticulous script charting home repairs, half-formed poems to us both. Michael's voice, reading aloud, wove David's cadence into the air. Gruff affection, wry observations on life's quirks. Laughter would bubble up, unexpected, chasing shadows. Then quieter turns, my head in his lap as he combed fingers through my hair, unraveling knots both literal and not. "You're blooming again," he'd murmur, and I'd arch into the touch, feeling petals unfurl in places long dormant. Doubt flickered. Of course, nights when the house creaked like judgment, or a neighbor's wave carried unspoken questions. I'd wake tangled in sheets, pulse racing, whispering to the dark, "Is this borrowed time?" But dawn would find Michael in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with that lopsided grin, and the fear dissolved like mist. We'd talk it through over coffee, voices overlapping in harmony. "It's ours," he'd affirm, palm over mine. "Grown from roots we both tend. The rest? Noise." Winter-cloaked Willow Creek in ermine hush, blanketing the world in possibility. We strung lights along the porch eaves, their glow a constellation against the chill, and shoveled paths to the woodpile together, breaths puffing white dragons. One storm-bound eve, snow sealing us in, we built a fire in the hearth and danced, slow, swaying to a crackly vinyl of Ella Fitzgerald, David's favorite. My cheek to his chest, his hand splayed warm at my back,